If you've made the same mistake as me and decided to go on Twitter for some godforsaken reason, you've probably seen the discourse surrounding the ghoul. You know, you can see it in other places like Discords, YouTube videos, other places, but mostly Twitter. Just to set some expectations, I've played for a long time now. I have 3,100 hours. I play a pretty even split of Survivor and Killer these days. I've seen all this unfold recently, and it has me worried that we will see another case of a killer getting merchanted. The unbridled hate around the ghoul has gotten so bad that I am genuinely worried this is like an actual possibility. I haven't seen another killer get so much hate like this since the Skull Merchant, and we all know what happened to her. At this point, everyone agrees that her gutting was undeserved. When she could hold Team Eternal for 55 minutes, obviously that was disgusting. But after her tweaks, she wasn't even that good anymore, and they still absolutely nuked her. This killer is so hated that you will see people instantly give up upon seeing him and sending like people personal insults just for playing them. Well, you know, he can't be hated for no reason, right? So why is he hated? It kind of starts with the PTB where he was unveiled. In the PTB, killer players loved Kaneki. His really fast movement and flinging himself around, it's just fun. A lot of the most popular killers are the faster ones, you know, like Blight, Wesker, stuff like that. Not only is being fast fun, but in a game like Dead by Daylight, it's really impactful to how well a killer can pressure the map. And Kaneki is almost as good as Blight in that aspect. However, survivors found him really frustrating to play against. Kaneki does a few specific things that survivors really don't like. Number 1, he gets a free hit. Ghoul's free hit injuring you can be really annoying, especially for new players who are scared to try and play injured. Although, to be honest, staying injured against Kaneki is not a very good idea. Number 2, he deep wounds you. Thankfully, he came out, I'm pretty sure, after deep wound got nerfed. But killers who deep wound are not really liked just because it's not fun to have to sit and mend repeatedly. I think the only real ones that deep wound that much are Legion and Ghoul. Deathslinger kind of does, but Deathslinger does not really like deep wound you and leave you. Like, he's not spreading as much of it as Kaneki and Legion are. Number 3, Kaneki is a great slugger. Being left on the ground really is not fun, and Kaneki is great at doing that because he's so fast. Every fast killer is pretty good at slugging. And on top of that, a lot of people don't really think that much about it, about how being out of position and Ghoul being so fast will let them get slugged. And they just think that Ghoul can injure you so easily, so they stay injured and it lets him snowball way out of control. Getting slugged is usually a fault of survivors for poor positioning and letting it happen, apart from certain edge cases like Blights who bring builds to get away with playing the match without ever hooking. Number 4, Kaneki goes amazingly with some of the most hated perks in the game, like Blood Favor, that limit chase interactivity. He has an add-on that works amazingly with Dead Man's Switch, which just removes access to the gen for 50 seconds. It's just annoying. Nobody likes when Kaneki hits you for free because he can injure you extremely easily, and then he can just down you for free with nothing you can do but run in a straight line until you die, because he has Blood Favor. It's just annoying. I mean, if you know it's there, you can play around it a little bit, but especially if you're like the first injure, you're just fucked. And getting your gen blocked by Dead Man's Switch is never fun. Especially because Dead Man's Switch is one of those perks that really disproportionately punishes solo queue compared to Survive with Friends. It's just really annoying. Overall, Kaneki has a lot of options that just generate a lot of downtimes for survivors and can lead to him really feeling boring to verse. Kaneki's power was also so ridiculously powerful on launch, and his counterplay is very unintuitive, so it's pretty hard to learn to play against him without someone telling you what to do if you're a new player. If you're inexperienced playing against M1s and those fundamentals, he will definitely destroy you. On launch, his vault was completely ridiculous and invalidated a lot of loops, and he didn't even lose his power from breaking a pallet. So often what he could do is just break it and then cut you off and zone you really hard, which is also not fun because then there's still nothing you can do. Since he's been nerfed, his vault isn't as powerful, and he can't leap after a break. He loses a token, so he's got to wait. It was bugged for a little bit to not work properly. If he had no tokens, he wouldn't lose one, so sometimes there'd be those edge cases where he breaks something and immediately can jump, but that is fixed now. He's still really good, though. He's easily top 6 or 7, and countering him is hard. You have to be confident playing greedy. Some counters, like vaulting back into the killer when they go for a vault, and going back don't even occur to people that they don't know that they can do it until they see it done. Obviously, he's not perfect. My opinion is that the Centipede and Yamori's Mask should be nerfed. If you don't know what the Centipede does, whenever he's enraged and he vaults, it gets blocked for 10 seconds. Centipede really should only apply to power vaults, and it should definitely be shorter. The problem with the Centipede is that if you power vault something, you lose the tokens. You can't immediately leap. But because the Centipede doesn't require you to power vault something, you can just regularly vault it, and then the survivor can't go anywhere. When usually you bam something and block the vault, the survivor just has to leave the loop and go elsewhere, or they have to immediately drop the pallet, or both. But if you just vault it regularly, the survivor can't go anywhere, because you just leap and cut them off. And they also can't stay because now the vault is broken. Like, it's blocked. What do you want them to do? There's just nothing they can do about the Centipede in a lot of cases, and it can be very frustrating. Yamori's Mask, instead of making like kind of a barbecue effect, but with a scream on top, I would honestly prefer to see it as like an Alien Instinct downgrade. Because right now it's mostly a worse barbecue, but as an add-on, it does very, very good. I would prefer it to act more like Alien Instinct, where it shows you one survivor for much longer than everyone just for a second. And that way, it'll be more consistent. Because if everyone's nearby, then you'll still see someone. I just like that design a lot more. I think that would be a much healthier add-on. He also has some bugs that need to be ironed out. There's one called the Kidnap that can freeze you in place while he gets a vault. And you can like force it to happen as a ghoul, and you can also counter it to prevent it from happening entirely as a survivor. But that doesn't mean it shouldn't go, because it is a bug. It does need to go. And I'm almost certain it will be removed. He also has another bug called LeapNet, where essentially you can kind of hug tech a wall into a window, and then you can keep leaping afterwards. That is also just obviously bullshit and needs to be removed. He has a few other weird bugs. Some of them help him, some of them hurt him. It's kind of all over the place, but he's really buggy, and those obviously need to be fixed. Now, I do have some issue with ghoul players. I'm not going to pretend like every ghoul is like so fun to play against. There's some pretty valid reasons to not like playing against the ghoul, but you really don't even need any to simply not like it. I don't like Huntress because of the frustrating hitboxes, and I don't like Spirit because honestly, she just pisses me off. I don't think it's fun to play against her. It's okay if you just don't like the ghoul. And people are acting like anyone who doesn't like the ghoul is just bad and needs to get better. Like, you couldn't possibly dislike the ghoul for like any reason other than a skill issue. Like, there are plenty of reasons to dislike the ghoul, and you don't even need one. You don't even need a reason to dislike the ghoul. What you do need a reason for is if you're gonna call for a killer to be like nerfed. Now, I think I've made a pretty good case for the changes I'd like to see to Kaneki. I don't think his base power needs any changes other than obviously having some bugs ironed out. But there are a lot of people who are genuinely calling for Kaneki to be gutted like Merchant. And that's just delusional. If you're calling for Kaneki to be gutted like Merchant, then we have an actual problem. And especially if you're sending like personal attacks to ghoul players. I've seen a lot of instances where a new player, for example, will join the game because they're just a fan of Tokyo Ghoul and they play the killer and they get so many toxic comments that are just crazy, calling them like a no-life sweat, or like because they're a new player just playing the character that they came to the game for. Like, obviously they're not going to be that good. And Ghoul is a good killer. So people will say the nastiest shit to these people. Like, yeah, you're on like an S tier killer and you fucking lost. Like, please uninstall. Like, are we really gonna talk to people like that? Like, they're just new players. They just enjoy their favorite character. How would you feel if your favorite license got added to the game? Like the one you've been waiting for forever. And anytime someone sees you play that character, they just fucking type the nastiest thing they can think of just because you played the character that you like. Like, that would feel like shit. And it's becoming super normalized against the Ghoul. It's really stupid. Now, a lot of people just don't like playing against the Ghoul. And because the Ghoul's counterplay is so unintuitive, it led to a lot of people claiming that he doesn't have any. And obviously that's just not true. A lot of the most experienced players can make a Ghoul look very silly. He won't look terrible, obviously, but he's not gonna look like, you know, Nurse or Blight. He's probably like top 6 or 7. For the record, I think that the top tiers, it's probably like Nurse, Blight, Billy, Dracula, Spirit, Singularity, and then Ghoul. So I think that's 7. So I wouldn't say he's S. I would say he's definitely A+, though. Like, he's very good. But because those people claim that Ghoul doesn't have any counterplay, they obviously, like, would receive tips from people who are like, no, in this situation you can do this. You know, when the Ghoul is trying to vault after you, you can just vault back into them as soon as they start the animation, and you have enough time to get back over, so it'll cancel the vault for them. Something like that. You know, like, someone will say, I fucking hate the kidnap tech, which, you know, that's fair because it's a bug. And someone will say, well, if you don't want it to happen, you can hug the window vault or whatever pallet he's trying to vault, because the awkward distances makes that happen. And then after a while, what we're seeing happen is people just still don't give a fuck. Like, you can tell someone about the counterplay to Ghoul, and they will just completely disregard it and then pretend like Ghoul still doesn't have any counterplay, like you didn't just tell them that. And now, because of that, because that's happened so much, a good amount of Ghoul players have just stopped engaging with this. Because why would you even bother trying to help someone if they're not gonna fucking listen? If you try to help someone improve when they say that there's no counterplay, and they just disregard it and continue to claim that there's no counterplay, at a certain point, you realize that what you're doing is pointless, and you just stop it. Nobody's gonna do something that is pointless for forever. At least nobody sensible is going to do that. And now, because the Ghoul players have got tired of giving people advice that they disregard, we now have people blaming the Ghoul players for gatekeeping the counterplay. Like, you will see a clip of someone doing the correct thing against a Ghoul, and someone will respond, this makes me hate Ghoul players more, because they knew you could do this and didn't tell us. Yes, they fucking did. And they got ignored so much that they stopped. Maybe not you in particular. Maybe not this one particular person who's saying this. But on a broader scale, Ghoul players tried to help, got ignored, and so they stopped. And you can't blame them as a whole when, on the whole, they've been ignored. That's just stupid. Obviously, a big milestone in this discourse was a tweet from Aaron comparing Kaneki to Old Skull Merchant. And that really kicked off like a new wave of people beginning to call for him to be gutted. Aaron like apologized for that because he realized it was a bit silly, but the damage is kind of already done. Another common complaint I see about the Ghoul is that they all play the same way. You know, that's really anecdotal. I could sit here and say, you know, every survivor plays the same way. That wouldn't be true, but like, how are you gonna disprove me? Are you gonna look at my games? You can't really. And if you say that I'm wrong, then I'll just complain you're invalidating my experience or something. And that's why this is kind of a bad faith argument. You can't really say that. Now, I could say personally, you know, when I play Ghoul, I don't use any slowdown, I don't use blood favor. But like, that's just me. That's just as anecdotal. If I were to present myself as a counterexample to the claim that every ghoul plays the same, they're both just as anecdotal. So either they're both true and cancel each other out, or both false, and so it doesn't matter. Like, either they both hold water or neither of them do. And even if we assume that every ghoul does play the same, yeah, obviously. That's inherent with the power. The nature of every killer being unique means that certain playstyles work for certain powers and some don't. There will obviously be an optimal way to play each killer that a majority of the people who play that killer will play. Plagues will gravitate towards Thanatophobia. Spirits will gravitate towards Strider. Wraiths will like Sloppy. That's just what happens. It's not like a problem. When I see Sloppy on a Wraith, I might think, oh great, Sloppy, you know, because it slows down healing and it's a little boring to watch the bar go so slow. But I'm not sitting there thinking, oh my god, another Wraith with Sloppy. Why does every Wraith have Sloppy? Because I understand why every Wraith has Sloppy. Wraith is not that good, and Wraith needs to rely on hit and run, and Sloppy makes that happen. Now, you could say that the stronger killers have the benefit of being able to experiment more, since their power is good already. And you would be right. But why would they? What exactly is the incentive to do that? The game has none. There's no reason that you wouldn't tunnel. There's no reason that you wouldn't camp. There's no reason that you wouldn't slug. There's no inherent reason you wouldn't use the strongest build for the character that you like. Now, obviously, some people are going to tailor their builds to like a certain playstyle, or they'll play with weaker things on purpose because they like the challenge. Like, for example, when I play Ghoul, I play with no slowdown, and my main is Ghostface, who is pretty shit. But there's no reason that the game itself gives me to limit myself. I do it for personal reasons. And that's kind of the game's fault. But, like, for my personal playstyle, I like to challenge myself to win with less. Like, my main is Ghostface. He's usually considered D-tier bottom 3. I've put so much time into Ghostface. So you can't even claim that I'm like a tryhard who brings the strongest thing in every game. I'm just a reasonable person who can acknowledge that the game itself doesn't give you a reason to pick anything bad, and doesn't expect people to purposely handicap themselves like I like to do. That's something I like. I can't force that on everyone. I'm not blaming individual players when I see someone bringing the strongest thing that they can. People just like winning. And the game gives them no reason to do something else. Like, the game does not reward you for losing, and I honestly don't think it should. Maybe it could reward you for doing something different that's not meta, but it shouldn't reward you for losing. That would just be silly. I don't think anybody would say that you should be rewarded for losing. Anyways, it's just really frustrating to see Ghoul players, you know, act like there's no reason you could possibly dislike Ghoul without just being bad. Survivor players act like Ghoul has no counterplay and is complete bullshit, needs to be gutted like Merchant. And it's so rare that you just see someone who's just like normal. Someone who doesn't think Ghoul should be nerfed into the ground. Someone who doesn't think that like you can't possibly hate Ghoul without being bad. Like, where did the nuance go? When you have big content creators even like piling on, and these are people who are supposed to have like respected opinions. You know, obviously you're not just going to take every content creator's opinion at face value and just believe it like some sort of mindless drone. But these people play the game for a living. They have the most hours. So you would expect them to have like reasonable takes. And when they don't, it's like, how can we expect regular average Joe players to possibly understand this if there's like 9,000 hour Andes who don't even get it? Seeing this Ghoul discourse go so far down all the wrong directions actually just makes me like lose a little bit of faith in the ability of the player base to have a productive discussion about balance. because there's so many people arguing in bad faith who just don't care. I don't know. It's just frustrating. I felt like making a video on it. Let me know what you agreed with, what you disagreed with that I said. Please, for the love of God, let's keep things civil. Let's try to encourage more productive discourse around things like balance, because stuff like this is actually really like disheartening to see. Because we all should want the game to be going in a better direction. And some people just can't look past their like tribalistic, I'm a killer, I just want things for the killer. Well, I play Survivor, so I just want Survivor to be buffed. So let's just try to have a civil discussion about the Ghoul. If you enjoyed, thank you for watching. If you watched this far, hopefully you enjoyed. Maybe you hated it. If you hated it, maybe you'll let me know why, and we can have a reasonable discussion. Either way, have a good one.